Welcome to worship with the Unitarian Universalist community of Charlotte. I'm Jay Leach, minister of this community, and my pronouns are he, him, his. Just a few weeks ago, I got up at 3:30 a.m., grabbed a coat and my tripod-mounted camera, and came out here onto our deck. I'd read the NASA alert about the Geminid meteor shower, a phenomenon NASA called one of the most reliable, with the prospect of up to 50 visible meteors an hour. So I intentionally interrupted my sleep to stand here, hoping to see that spectacle, and with a wild wish that I might even capture a meteor in a photograph. I ended up with 100 or so very slow exposure images, none of which included a meteor. But I was hardly disappointed. As advertised, it was a remarkable show. Small flashes of light arcing through the sky, one after another. That NASA alert explained the parent of the Geminids is 3,200 Phaethon, which is either an asteroid or an extinct comet. When the Earth passes through the trails of dust or meteoroids left by 3,200 Phaethon, that dust burns up in the Earth's atmosphere, creating the Geminid meteor shower. It then noted Geminids travel 78,000 miles an hour, 35 kilometers a second. This is, it said, over 1,000 times faster than a cheetah, about 250 times faster than the swiftest car in the world, and over 40 times faster than a speeding bullet. Such precise and fascinating information. A relatively unsung hymn in our congregation's gray hymnals, you remember those, begins, "Knowledge, they say, drives wonder from the world. They say it still, though all the dust's ablaze." I can honestly say that I cannot think of a single time in my life when knowledge, understanding, information diminished my sense of wonder. The scene out here on that magical early morning was only made more amazing by what I had learned. So today we celebrate the human quest, that unquenchable human quest to know, and the ways science has embodied that quest. We celebrate human grandeur as evidenced by scientific pursuits, and the wonder that is exponentially enhanced by scientific knowledge. We acclaim the lineage of scientific learners who have passed their learnings on to us: Copernicus, Maria Mitchell, Catherine Coleman Goebel Johnson, and Galileo, who wrote in a 1615 letter of this grand book, the universe, which stands continually open to our gaze. that in the immensity of the cosmos, you have managed to connect here with us is also something remarkable. All those bits and bytes, wires and signals, zeros and ones, files and screens, now working in harmony to make possible this virtual connection. For all of the glitches and frustrations, that it ever works at all is amazing. Thank you for being a part of our community, gathered everywhere. All of us now a part of something more, linking us for these moments. To deepen that connection, if you are a part of our Sunday morning community, go now to our public Facebook page and greet one another personally there. If you're finding us for one of the first times, I'd love to talk with you. If you're beginning to think that perhaps this could be your community, we'd welcome the opportunity to explore that with you. The easiest way to arrange that conversation or to explore the possibility of joining is to go to our public Facebook page, find the comment from our membership coordinator, Kelly Green, and respond with your own message. To all of you, our community everywhere, welcome.
When we light our chalice, everyone focuses on the flame.
Yet it is the paraffin of the candle, the cotton of the wick, the potassium chlorate and sulfur of the match,
And the oxygen in the air around us that makes the flame possible.
As leaders, we are not called to be a lone beacon on a hill.
Rather, we are meant to work together so that we might together shine.
A poem by Maura Stanton called Computer Map of the Early Universe. We're made of stars. The scientific team flashes a blue and green computer chart of the universe across my TV screen to prove its theory with a work of art. Temperature shifts translated into waves of color, numbers hidden in smooth lines. At last we have a map of ancient time. One scientist says lost in a rapt gaze. I look at the bright model they've designed, the Big Bang's fury frozen into laws, pleased to see it resembles a sonnet, a little frame of images and rhyme that tries to glitter brighter than its flaws and trick the truth into its starry net.
The wisest course in life is to proceed with considerable caution. After all, as the old maxim goes, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. I'm sorry, I need to start over. The wisest course in life is to proceed with courageous confidence. After all, as the old maxim goes, the one who hesitates is lost. Okay, I've managed to confuse myself. Is it considerable caution or courageous confidence? It obviously can't be both. Or can it? Just as we recognize that there's truth in each of these seemingly contradictory maxims, so too all deep spiritual truths are paradoxical. Which is to say, spiritual truths are the kind of thing that are also both and, not either or. That both a claim and its opposite can be held as true may signal not a contradiction, but rather the kind of coherence that comes from venturing down into the depths. A portion of our first service of this year intentionally pointed up how minuscule we humans are in both the history and the grand scale of the cosmos. I dismiss Protagoras' assertion, man is the measure of all things, as a laughable declaration of humanistic hubris. Our lifespans are measured in mere decades, and our entire existence as a species measured in a couple of hundred millennia. We live on a planet that's preparing for its 5 billionth birthday, and in a cosmos that is almost 3 times that old. It is undeniably true. We humans are minuscule. Now, if you think that's the whole truth, you might begin to feel insignificant, irrelevant. Might imagine that your life doesn't really even matter. Maybe a reminder is again in order. My friends, it's never possible to tell the whole story in one service. Profound paradoxes are profound, rarely reducible to the constraints of a 1-hour experience. We most certainly are not the measure of all things. And, not but, and here's the paradox. We are the measurers of all things. We humans, acting as scientists, aided by the scientific method, adhering to scientific truths, measure the infinitesimal and the infinite, investigate the minute and the multiverses, explore the lowest depths of the ocean and the glacial peaks of mountains, gaze into quarks and leptons and out to black holes and distant galaxies, probe the mysteries of light as both wave and particle, and the mysteries of dark matter and dark energy, investigate the birth of our species and the Big Bang that blasted it all into being. How well that 19th century astronomer Maria Mitchell named our remarkably insatiable scientific pursuits. We have, she says, a hunger of the mind, which asks for knowledge of all around us. And the more we gain, the more we desire. The more we see, the more we are capable of seeing. As if he were but echoing Maria Mitchell's voice, Stephen Hawking would write of us, ever since the dawn of civilization, people have not been content to see events as unconnected and inexplicable. We have craved an understanding of the underlying order of the world. Today, we still yearn, Stephen Hawking writes. We still yearn to know why we are here and where we are from. No, we're not the measure of all things. But that's okay. We're the species with hungry minds, forever rising to the fullness of our scientific statures, that we might see more and more. We are the discontented species, forever craving understanding, yearning to know. And as Stephen Hawking wrote, humanity's deepest desire for knowledge is justification enough for our continuing quest.
Reading by M.L. Williams from Knowers and Makers, describing the universe. Each way of seeing contributes to the total human endeavor. Each description of the universe adds to our ability to see further into the depths of the universe, or into the depths of our own consciousness. Poets and scientists alike desire to describe and create, to tell the stories about the universe, and to clear a space for new ideas, new ways of thinking. And whether we tell our stories in verse or in Maxwell's field equations, it is our mutual ability to describe the universe that ultimately brings our endeavors together.
For those of us who have been watching closely, This past Wednesday's message was such great news, following other messages containing great news. NASA's massive new observatory has notched another milestone, it proclaimed. After nearly a full month in space, the James Webb Space Telescope is nearly at the end of its deployment work. The complicated series of deployments has seen the telescope transform from its tightly folded launch configuration into what looks like a real observatory. On this very day, Sunday, January 23rd, the Webb telescope is expected to complete its arrival maneuver 1 million miles away from Earth. Now, were we in our sanctuary, I would repeat that and insist that it be met with some hearty amens and hallelujahs. For those who may not know, on Christmas Day last year, the James Webb Space Telescope blasted off from its launch pad in Kourou, French Guiana. The 7-ton telescope has been 25 years and $10 billion in the making, the work of thousands of scientists from 14 different countries. Its 5 silvery, wing-like, paper-thin sheets, about as large as a tennis court, and its 18 hexagonal, gold-coated mirrors are designed to work together to capture light. Listen closely to this because it's going to sound like some fantasy. Are designed to capture light that has been traveling for more than 13 billion years. Now, if that does not invoke a sense of awe in you, if that does not inspire a sense of wonder in you, if that doesn't signal a clear indication of human grandeur, your imagination, your soul may need to be revived. Out there, a million miles from our puny little ball, there's a human-made scientific observatory looking billions of years into our cosmically primordial past. I am among the many who has been watching this with utter fascination, visiting the website set up by NASA that enables us to see in real time how far the Webb is from Earth, how much further it needs to go, how fast it is traveling. It's well over 1/10 of a mile a second. Its temperature on its hot side, over 130 Fahrenheit. And on its cold side, below negative 325 degrees Fahrenheit, along with a narrative of its development. And today, if you will join me in going to that site, NASA's James Webb Space Telescope website, we will see together that the Webb has arrived in that precise place where it will remain suspended for the next decade or so. Now, will the hundreds of billions of galaxies take note? Will they suddenly join in hailing the Homo sapiens from a distant blue ball as the measure of all things? I doubt it. If the assessment of this Achievement commends something considerably more modest than that. It need not be any less meaningful or celebrated with any less exuberance. We humans are wired not just to do the biological basics required for a species to up the odds on its continuance. We humans are inveterate searchers, seekers, askers, examiners, questioners, measurers. We humans are a grand and remarkable lot. And if we are the only audience for our amazement, that may be all the more reason for us to acclaim it. And that, my friends, is surely one of the best things about us. We have a seemingly limitless capacity to amaze ourselves, to do things that we thought were impossible. Has anyone ever sung our praises any more lustily than Carl Sandburg? There in his long hymn to human grandeur, the people, yes, Sandburg, in the regrettably patriarchal language that once seemed acceptable, professes. Man will never write, they said, before the alphabet came, and man at last began to write. Man will never fly, they said, before the planes and blimps zoomed and purred in arcs, widening their circles around the globe. Then, slightly revised to make it more inclusive, Sandberg adds, and humankind, the stumbler and finder, goes on. Humankind, the dreamer of deep dreams. Humankind, the shaper and maker. Humankind, the answerer. All throughout his long, long poem are Sandberg's questions, which are our human questions. Where to? What next?
One of the fascinating developments in human culture is about color. We began by finding color in our natural surroundings. The first known human use is red ochre from about 75 to 100,000 years ago in western South Africa, where triangles were drawn using that pigment. There's evidence that the ochre and marrow fat were blended to make paint. It's an example of early science. As we humans began with clay, soil, burnt materials, and animal fats, we can now produce an almost unending array of colors using chemical compounds, testing, spectrophotometers, to name a few instruments. Many centuries ago, after us humans used red ochre to create paints, Spanish explorers in the New World found a minuscule beetle called cochineal living on a prickly pear cactus in central Mexico. It's what the indigenous people used to make a brilliant red dye for fabrics and paints. The Spanish did not understand that that little speck on the plant was an animal that created the red dye, and it wasn't until microscopes were developed in the late 1600s that the beetles were named. The indigenous population of central Mexico was surely aware of it as a living creature, as they cultivated the insect for its dye properties. It is still used in cosmetics and some foods. Most red dye, however, is chemically produced these days. The first colors that humans used were a palette of red and yellow, which are both easily found in nature, brown, white, and black. Since then, we've discovered and developed over 10 million different colors, according to a group that calls itself psychophysicists. These colors all stem from 11 main colors that most of us are familiar with. Primary colors are red, blue, and yellow. Secondary colors are blends of purple, green, and orange. The blends go from there in proportions. Lapis lazuli is a brilliant blue stone found only in Afghanistan in one mountain range. It was very expensive and greatly prized in Europe in the 1600s by painters. As recently as the 1950s, a paint supplier in Paris invented a synthetic version of an ultramarine blue by heating sulfur, kaolinite, and sodium carbonate to create a color which is chemically identical to lapis lazuli, but much more vivid. To differentiate the two, it was called French ultramarine, and it's considered an effective lapis lazuli alternative. So science can mimic nature very accurately. Purple is one of the first colors to be manufactured synthetically. In the middle 1800s, an 18-year-old chemistry student was looking for a malaria cure. During his research, he was fascinated when he dipped fabric into chromic acid and coal aniline. The fabric came out of the chemical bath a wonderful purple, which he called mauvine. He became very wealthy from his patent and discovery of the purple dye, but not for a malaria cure. Early purple dye was very expensive and usually only worn by royalty. It was produced by crushing small sea snails called murex. It took 12,000 of these small snails to make 1 gram of purple dye. The history of culture is one of constant discovery, innovation, beauty, and science. Color is used to create a mood, to warn people, to express emotion, and to teach math and science. It is a way to label. Stars are made of colors, which our newly sophisticated telescopes and lenses are now able to read. There are countless anecdotes about color, its effect on humans and animals, and what it can symbolize. Color, of course, comes from nature, from human imagination, and from science.
Ground controls and lasers Ground controls and lasers
While the regrettable ravages of the pandemic persist, this is not stopping us as a congregation. Members received this week a hopeful, inspiring message from our visionary board of trustees. If you have not already read it, find time to do so, either in the email that you received on Wednesday or in this past week's issue of Currents posted on Thursday. You'll be hearing much more from our board about it in the coming days. Some of us availed ourselves of the opportunity last Sunday to worship virtually in a Black congregation. To continue that exploration, our membership coordinator, Kelly Green, and I will be offering a 4-week series of classes in which we will view Henry Louis Gates' PBS series, The Black Church. It begins tomorrow evening, but it's not too late to sign up. Go to our website to do so. You'll find there other ways to connect, connection being a key word in our coming days. We continue, as the board statement said, to offer love and support to those who are suffering misfortune. We know that many in our congregation have had experiences with COVID recently, and experiences that have ranged from mild to really uncomfortable. We hold each other with loving concern as we continue to navigate such challenging days. Then we know of so many to whom we now extend our care. We hold in our prayers Barbara Busey and her family, and the death of Barbara's mother this week. We hold in our hearts Tom Cole and Carol Hartley, Patrick and Sarah, as Tom recovers from serious surgery. We're sending love to Gwen Movius as she recovers from a recent injury. We hold in our hearts Denise Weldon Clark and Chris Clark and their family, as Denise's father undergoes surgery this week. And our prayers now always include Tawana Wilson Allen and Manny Allen and their family, as Tawana faces serious ongoing health challenges. We know there are others, names unspoken today, ongoing places of pain, of struggle, of stress. May we be to one another the community that each of us wants and needs. I invite us now into a time of meditation and aspiration, breathing a little deeper, quieting ourselves, closing your eyes. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, mystery both beyond and deep within, O God of all people, for the gift of life and for the gift of life we share with others, for access to life's necessities and to comfort as well, for beauty and wonder which break into our weeks, infusing them with much more than just enough. We are grateful. For our community, we pray. For those called out to lead us in these perilous times, and for those who need what we have to offer so very deeply now. May we each and may we all bring our loving attention and energy to the demands of the present time, to the needs and joys of our members and of the larger communities that surround us, for all places of pain, for all places of oppression, for all places of violence. We hold space today in our hearts with compassion. These things we pray in the name of all that we know to be good and true and beautiful. Amen.
Let us now give freely, generously, an offering to sustain and strengthen our shared religious community, a community of memory, hope, faith, and love. For we are now keepers of its flame that burns for justice, a dream of beloved community, its vision of a world made whole.
Poet Seamus Heaney tells the truth about us. Human beings suffer. They torture one another. They get hurt and get hard. It's not hard to find ample indications that he sized us up accurately. Open or listen to any news source, and it will be filled with stories of people behaving badly. However, while that may be the regrettable truth, it is far from the whole truth about us. And here we arrive again at a paradox. Human beings suffer and celebrate. They torture one another and amaze one another. They get hurt and get hard, and they join in common quests that result in scientific discoveries and breakthroughs recognized around the globe. I can't say it better than Nicholas Casey did in the New York Times. America was a nation divided, But that did not stop it from building parts of the James Webb Space Telescope in red states and in testing them in a blue one. European Union and Russia were facing off over Ukraine and other issues this past year. But scientists from both sides will now benefit greatly from the discoveries that soon could be within our reach. And while the pandemic snarled supply chains around the world, no lockdown could derail the telescope's trajectory to the stars. Parts were assembled across multiple nations, then tested in the United States, and the final product ended up on a launch pad in French Guiana before being hurtled into outer space on Christmas Day. He continues, in some ways, the James Webb Space Telescope told a story seldom heard these days, the story of nations coming together for a common ambition. At a time when countries are divided over climate change, migration, and a disease that has killed millions, this spacecraft, launched to search for habitable planets and to seek out the earliest, most distant stars and galaxies, was a potent reminder that international cooperation on a grand scale was still possible. Martin Barstow, who is a professor of astrophysics and space science at the University of Leicester in England, who oversaw the telescope's Mission Control Center, professes, I'd like to think that science is a way to moderate some of the extreme situations that we have on this planet. And I've always seen space as an area where we cooperate through all the trying times. From the cosmic expanse to the human biological system, we regularly exhibit our human grandeur through science. If you have given more attention to the minority that is refusing the vaccine than you have to the miracle that it exists at all, you need this reminder. Don't give your best energy to the worst of who we are. Is there any more remarkable feat in the history of medicine than the stunningly rapid development of a vaccine that is actually efficacious? We're remarkable. We are remarkable. Please don't forget that. In The Big Picture, physicist Sean Carroll acclaims, the universe is not a miracle. It simply is, unguided and unsustained, manifesting the patterns of nature with scrupulous regularity. Instead, he proclaims, we are the miracle. We human beings. Not a break the law of physics kind of miracle. It is wondrous and amazing, Sean Carroll writes, how such complex, aware, creative, caring creatures could have arisen in perfect accordance with those laws. Our lives are finite, unpredictable, and immeasurably precious. So he writes, our emergence has brought meaning and mattering to the world. Oh, is there any greater paradox than us? On the days when you get down on your fellow creatures, repeat after Sean Carroll, we are the miracle, we human beings. We are the miracle. We human beings. We are the miracle. We human beings. My colleague and friend Richard Gilbert writes, I recall the story of a conversation between an astronomer and a theologian. The astronomer quite confidently said, astronomically speaking, we are negligible. To which the theologian replied, astronomically speaking, we are the astronomers. Go with courage, my friends. Go embodying and celebrating human grandeur. May it be so.